everyone, welcome back to Watercolor Wednesday. This is Kendra Krebs, your guest designer for the month of August. And today we are going to do a very highly requested project. This is a night sky with the tree silhouettes. Everybody has said that they would love to see a night scene, so this is my interpretation of a night scene for you, and I hope that you enjoy this tutorial. And the stamps that I'm using are the large jumbo grass in the watercolor foliage set 1, the 2 wild grass in the garden wagon mini set, this branch right here in the watercolor branches set, and then these trees, and actually I think it's just these 2 trees, not this one, but you could use this one as well. So just any number of these trees because they're nice and dark and it's going to be a nice silhouette against that big moon. Let's get started. And as usual, I've got my watercolor paper with my Post-it tape. I absolutely love this. Mine is in yellow. We sell the white on the website. And this is about 3 inches by 4 inches. And we're going to get started once again with our focal point. We're going to continue that theme. And we're going to draw a line to begin with. I'm just going to go this way. Right across the center to create our horizon line. So very, very lightly. Don't forget to really use a light touch on that. And we're going to mark the center. I'm then going to just create very lightly again a V shape down the center of my image. Just like that. These don't have to be perfectly even. This is just a guide for you and you'll see why later. And then I'm going to take a quarter and put it right in the center to the best of my ability. Obviously you can't see through the quarter, so you don't know exactly where the center is, but that's okay. I'm just going to trace right around, and if it isn't perfect, it's okay. And this is going to be the moon. So I just used a quarter for that. And then for the stars, I'm going to go ahead and put in a Molotow splatter. And what I did for that was just take my Molotow and get a whole bunch out. This is just my positioner rectangle, and this just rubs right off. So I just put a little pile of this on there, and then I used a brush like this. This is a synthetic bristle, just a small brush, and just splattered it on. I've got one already dry. This does take a few minutes to dry, so I went ahead and did that and let it dry so that we could just move on. And now I'm going to take my Marvy markers, which are water-based marker as we know, and I'm going to use my palette to begin to sort of wash in some of these colors in here. And I'm going to go ahead and use 15 olive green right onto my palette. Most of the work here is going to be done off palette. Number 45 sepia, number 86 African violet, a little bit of the 82 mustard. You can also use any other color. I just really wanted something lighter. So you could use the bright yellow, you could use the butterscotch. I'm just using one that I have on hand here. It's just any generic yellow will work. And then also the number 1 black. And I'm gonna need lots of that. So I'm gonna take my brush, and right now we're just going to fill in the night sky here, and you can see my liquid latex is already down, so that's really nice. When I go and paint over this, it's going to protect the watercolor paper underneath. So I'm going to take my blue, and this is the 86 African violet, and I'm just going to start dabbing this in using a lot of water. And you don't need to be perfect on it getting into the moon or anything like that. This line right here is just a guide for you. We're going to get a little bit of color into that moon because the moon isn't going to be a perfect sphere, so it's okay if it kind of looks a little bit less perfect. We just want the idea of the moon. So I'm coming in and just washing in this 86 I'm just using 86 as of right now. I am going to switch over to use some of the black here in a second, but I don't want it too dark right next to the moon because that's radiating light, correct? So we just want it to kind of come in here. And you can see I'm dabbing. I'm not using straight strokes. Straight strokes will cause probably some streaking for you, and then it'll take away actually from the starry night look. So I'm going to take more of that 86 and just keep moving around. And I do want to get most of those white highlights out of there because my stars are really what is going to be my highlight. Oh, I can't speak today. I'm going to grab some of the black, a little bit more of that 86 just because I know I'm going to need it. A little bit of the black here. This is number 1 black. I'm going to mix that with the 86 and just kind of keep moving out. So I'm graduating light to dark. And I'm going to continue just moving along, dabbing in that black into the 86. Just moving back. Grab a little bit more black, straight black, and kind of pull that in just to mix a little bit with that 86. Take a little bit of both and move along the top here. You can see your liquid latex underneath kind of stays greenish blue. That's kind of nice so that you can see where it's at. And I'm going to drop a little bit of water in here just to kind of separate out some of the colors. This is going to be very wet, very wet. So you want a nice heavy duty watercolor paper, at least 140 pounds for this, because it's going to be warping if you have anything less and you're using as much water as I am right now. Even the 140 pound can warp a little bit if you don't have a nice structure, which is one of the reasons I really like this tape for this. But also I just love the framing effect that it gives. So I'm just moving around. See how the water kind of added some interest and detail over there? I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm literally just grabbing a little bit of water from my cup and dropping it in. And it's going to separate out, you can see it's going to separate out some of that color and just add sort of a galaxy feel. Okay, so I've got most of my color in. I'm going to turn the video off just for a second and I will be back with you when this is dry. Okay, so that's about dry. I'm going to now turn my paper, and I like to allow this to dry mostly before I move on, just because I kind of handle the paper a little bit more, and if this is all still wet when I come down to paint this, I run the risk of running the colors together or getting the color on my fingers and then transferring to the lower area of the picture, and I'm just going to avoid that by letting the top part dry before moving on. And I'm taking away the Molotow splatters from below the horizon line now. That's what I'm kind of doing by rubbing those little guys off, just so I don't have stars in my landscape. Now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to take just a little bit of that green and a little bit of the black. I need a dark line right between my sky and my landscape. So I've got this to the side because this is the easiest way for me to paint a straight line, just ergonomically for me. So you may not need your paper turned this far. That's totally fine. Just whatever's comfortable for you. And I'm just going to kind of create that line there across. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Landscapes aren't perfectly straight, right? So now I'm going to take some of my green and some of my brown, sepia, and I'm going to start sort of just washing this in. Just ignore that those focal lines that we made. We're going to actually use those later. I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow to kind of wash in some yellow here where the moonlight would be hitting. A little bit more green. And in general, you want it to stay a little bit darker on the outside and lighter as you come in, just because the light is sort of focused here. So maybe I'll mix a little bit of that green and the black and just bring some out. Really, it doesn't matter what colors you choose in this area. You just kind of want them mixed up. Like you don't want all one area to be just solid green and all one area to be solid yellow. You sort of want to sort of mix things with your water. I'm going to add a little bit of this color in here. And you can see I'm just kind of mixing all the colors just sporadically together. There's no right and wrong way to do this. Just kind of grab and go. Because it's watercolor. Things are going to kind of come together and mix, right? So grab a little bit more of the black. And I'm going to continue maybe a little bit of the blue and the green together. And I'm just washing this in. Make sure you have enough water on your brush because if you don't, you're going to get streaky. And you don't want a lot of streakiness in here. You want it to be really smooth. Maybe just a little bit of the straight green coming in here. And really, we kind of just want a marbling effect down at the bottom because we're not going to see a lot of detail in here. We're just going to see the overall color. Mix a little bit of that blue and black together because the further away you get from the moon, the darker it's going to be. So I'm just washing this, and now this part I can use straight strokes because my landscape is going like this. The sky isn't, this isn't like hard mass, right? This is. So we can use a straight stroke down here on our ground. So I'm gonna keep going, just bring a little bit more color in here. You can see we're getting a really nice marbling effect now. And pull some of that out, a little bit of yellow in here maybe, where the moon is shining. A little bit of straight black back in here. Maybe a little bit of the blue and the black together. In this area, some green. So for the most part, I've got that filled in now. I might add just a little bit of a darker area in some spots with just the straight black, just to add a little bit of contrast in the ground. And that's up to you where you want to do that. Maybe there's a dip in the ground there or something. Or even maybe you want to create like a little stream or something that would be dark if you did water. Okay, so now that I have my main landscape basin, I'm gonna go ahead and let this dry and then I'll be right back. Okay, so now my landscape is dry. I'm gonna go ahead and take my eraser and erase out the Molotow splatter in the sky. And you can see how all these little stars start coming out. And it is so whimsical, cute. I'm also going to erase the moon line. And we'll come back in for a few extra strokes in there. But keep going just across the top. This is why you want to make sure it's super dry, is because you're really getting in there with your pencil eraser. And if it isn't super dry, it will rip your paper, 100%. So definitely wait till it's dry, it's worth it. Get all those little latex debris off. All this can come off. Oops, stamps are flying. So now you can see how beautiful this night sky is just from that Molotow latex splatter. And I've also come in with the 86 and the number 1, the blue and the black, and really just added a lot of detail in here. So I absolutely love the way that the skies turn out when you do that. So now I've got my lower landscape here, and now it's just a matter of putting our stamps in. I'm gonna go ahead and take our branch, and I'm gonna use 86 and number 1 for this. I'm gonna color 86 first and number 1 over the top. It's just gonna kind of give me a blue black, which I really like, as opposed to a straight black. And I'm just going to begin to stamp this in. Now this doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just getting some branches in to sort of stick out the sides. And I'm gonna re-ink with the 86. Maybe I go black first, maybe I go 86 first, doesn't really matter. Just really want a nice dark branch. So I've got that. Now I'm gonna take my jumbo grass, which is from the foliage set, and I'm gonna ink it the same way. So I'm gonna go 86 first and number 1 black. And I'm gonna come in and start up here and move my way down. Now we still wanna stamp at least 5 times. This time I'm gonna come in just with the black. And you can switch back and forth. If you wanna use just 86, you can. Sometimes just the black, sometimes totally fine. It's just whatever you want. I am gonna add just a teeny bit of water to this so you will be able to see the difference in tone when we add water. A little bit of black, a little bit of 86 on this side as well. I'm just gonna come up, same thing. And right up here. You can see I've sort of climbed just a little bit of the wall here. Anything really flat like this is going to be less interesting than something like this when it sort of has a shape. So keep that in mind when you're putting your grass in or your flowers or what have you. It's more interesting if you sort of change up the way that the grass is oriented. Now I'm going to take that wild grass from the wagon set, and I've got ones going on either side, so I want it to come in. So I'm going to take this one on the left. I'm going to ink it with the black and the 86, and I'm going to just stamp some of these in. See how cute those are. Same thing over here, 86 and black. It doesn't matter if you go 86 first or black first and then the other. It really just does not matter. And I'm gonna put my other wild grass in, and then we're gonna go ahead and put in our trees. Now, here's where our nice focal point comes in. This just kind of helps us to decide where we wanna put our trees, as well as where the shadow goes, which is really important for these. I'm gonna use just the straight black on this. I'm gonna ink these and stamp 2 next to each other here. And maybe I'll just do a half on this side. And when I add my water, I can fill in the rest of that. And then back in here, I'm going to ink my other trees and stamp them something along those lines. And your trees are never going to be the same every time, so don't worry about it. Trees are oriented in all kinds of ways. So I'm going to take my brush and just lightly pull out a little bit of that tree. Same thing here, just to darken it up, because it will be a silhouette in front of that moon. And if you need to come back in with your detail tip and fill it in more, make it nice and dark, you can totally do that. But I really want to fill these in and make them look nice and bushy and dark. Take this one, do the same thing. And I'm just dabbing. I'm not using straight strokes. Unless I'm doing the, right as I did the trunk. I'm like, oh, I'm not using straight strokes, but I do on the trunk. So I will just use a little bit of that. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of the black and add in just a little bit more where I want something just a touch darker. And I'm just dabbing that extra color in from my palette just like that. And then when you go to do your shadows, you really want to, I'm going to mix a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the black. I don't want it so dark. I don't want it as dark as the trees. But you're going to follow the lines of this focal point. So when, and the shadows, they're going to be pretty long. So keep that in mind. You're going to follow the line that you made right here. And you just want it somewhere in that vicinity. So this is going to be here. This is going to go out, down like this, and like that. So those are going to be your shadows. That's why you have this line here, because that's going to be your guide for your shading. Because the moon is in the center, it's going to split the shadows like this. So all of you, even this tree, the shadow wouldn't go this way because the moonlight is shining here. So it's going to be split. And that's why you have that focal line to kind of help you. I'm going to take my brush and just add a little bit of water down in here to make it nice and dark. Same thing here. And just a touch up into that wild grass. You can see the blue sort of coming out. I want to keep this nice and simple. If you feel like you want to wash in something just a little bit darker, like in this vicinity, just to kind of darken things up. Like I felt like it might have been a little bit light just back in here. So I went ahead and just added some 86 and some number 1 just to darken that up. Just a touch. And then in my branches, I'll add a tiny bit of water just at the base there. Not much. I'm going to leave it kind of as is. And then I'll take a little bit of the 86 African Violet and I'll just put a very small little line on my moon there and wash it out. I'm going to wash this out. Just want a little bit there, not a lot. Just something to give the moon just a touch of structure. And I can come back in and really darken up that horizon line more so. Okay. Erase your focal point line. And you could do something like add Winkostella in here. How cute would that be? Some glitter. I would do it on film, but the glitter never shows up on video. So you could put some glitter like down the center here. You could put it up in the night sky. Whatever works for you. And then you're going to take off your tape. I just love this part. This is like my favorite part because then you really see your work. And there you have it. So make sure, I forgot this in my last video, or the video, it was either the last one or the one before, I forgot to sign. So you guys don't forget to sign your work. That is so important. And I am going to sign down there, even though it's difficult to see, it is on there. And there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and we will see you in the next video. Bye.